My name is Herbert C. Miller. I was named after my two youngest uncles, Herbert Pettiford and Foy and Cleo Pettiford. So Herbert Cleo Miller, Cleopatra. But anyway, my mother was Orinda Pettiford Miller. My father was Walter Miller. And I was born 91 years ago. Well, it means a lot. Of course, our local family, that is my brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest of six of us, and they still think of me as a baby after 91 years or so. But anyway, we've always been a very close family. That is the local family, in addition to the wider family, the Pettiford Weaver family. And we've had our reunion, as you probably know by now, 100 years. And I've been to almost all of them. Although I remember in 1936, just as they took a picture of the whole group, I covered my face with my hands, and I think so the one in that picture with his face covered up is me, just in case you were wondering. But other than that, we've been very close all those 100 years, and one year after the other. I'm working on my graduate degree down in Bloomington, and I was teaching Russian down there as a graduate student, and the dean of the regional campuses hired me to teach Russian at the Indianapolis campus. And then when I finished my degree down there, I went over to him to see about a job, a permanent job someplace. So he had been the head of the campus here in Kokomo just before he went to Bloomington to take over all the campuses. And so he said, well, I just left Kokomo. They may need somebody up there. So I came up here and talked to the head of the campus here, and he said, oh yeah, so he hired me. I think I was the first African American here in Kokomo, and the second African American in the entire university. The first one was Richard Johnson. He was a drummer, a percussionist, and they hired him in the music school down there in 1951. I was hired in 1960 as the first full-time African-American faculty member in the University in the Indiana University, in spite of the fact that the university was founded in 1820. So for more than 100 years, they couldn't find anyone in the entire country to teach at Indiana University. So we've come a little way since then, but we still got a long way to go. I came to Kokomo to look for a place to stay, and there was and the director here, who was Victor Bogle, he had gotten together some houses for rent, or places for rent, out of the want ads. And so we went down the street. There was a place on Sycamore Street, just east on Sycamore Street, with a sign in the window, apartment for rent. So we just walked down there, since it was just down the street from the campus. And the woman came to the door, and so Victor Bogle explained who we were, my wife and I, who we were, and explained to the woman that I'd be teaching down the street. And she looked at us with standard look and said, well, I wouldn't have any place for those people. So now, of course, it didn't shock us, but it shocked Victor. And so we went back to his office, because he didn't want to face that again, and checked out some of the want ads that he had gotten together to see what the attitudes were toward some of the other places in the want ads. we called Willis Hochstetler, who's a Mennonite farmer out east of town, between here and Greentown. And he said, well, I wouldn't have any trouble with those people, as long as they're decent people. We don't care what color they are. So we went out there and lived on his farm for 13 years and became a part of their family in essence. But meanwhile, however, people had some difficulty buying lots to build houses, that is, of African Americans anyway. And so, and we wanted to build a house, so I had Willis Hochstetler buy a lot and then sell it to me, which he did. And he was also a contractor, so he built the house on it. So you have to do things, that sort of stuff, to get around the problems that you have otherwise, you see. So there's always a problem of some sort. But at any rate, but before that, he had, Victor Bogle had checked with some of the other professionals here in town, a dentist, a couple of lawyers, a couple of doctors, to see where I was going to live. And they of course got upset because they said, let him live wherever he wants to. But that was not the case. But you had to go through all these other mechanisms to live where you want to now. In 1967, we got together to work on an open housing ordinance for the Kokomo, for the city of Kokomo. And right across the street from the campus on Washington Street is Maple Crest. And so our public speaking teacher had his students do a survey of what the attitudes were in Maple Crest toward having African American residents in Maple Crest. And they came back and gave their report. And it turned out, when they asked them whether they would mind having African Americans live in Maple Crest, and of course they all said, oh no, I wouldn't mind, but my neighbor over there, he's a real racist. And he went over there and said, well, no, I wouldn't mind, but he's a real racist. They went over there and said, oh, no, I wouldn't mind, but he was a real racist. So everybody's a racist in Maple Crest, except the people who you were talking to. But at any rate, we got through an ordinance, and so now African Americans living generally anywhere they want to, or where they can afford to. Although they talked to one fellow in Maple Crest who said, oh, I wouldn't mind, but they couldn't afford this house because it'd have to be a professional of some sort. And he said, where do you work? Well, I work at Chrysler. Well, what do you do at Chrysler? Well, I work on a machine. Well, are there any African Americans working on machines? Oh, yeah, Joe works at one that just down the hall. Well, does he make the same money you make? Well, I guess he does. Well, if you can afford this house, why can't Joe afford this house? Well, that, of course, had never occurred to him, because that's how people think, you see, that they automatically are superior to anyone who is not white. You see, that's one of the big problems we still have today. But at any rate, we've made some strides since then, although when one of my cousins moved up on North Street, because the northeast side of Kokomo was designated as a place for African Americans to live, and you couldn't live outside of that, so which meant that you had doctors and lawyers building houses in that area, which of course were valued less because they were in that area. And since they couldn't build out somewhere else, why they had to build in that area. So there a couple of doctors and lawyers lived in that area, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. They couldn't buy a place anywhere else. Well, the part of it, as I said, many of the family have pushed to make these changes in the community, and one of them moved up on North Street, and she said that finally, but she said that her neighbor, when she moved in, sat on his porch with a shotgun to welcome her into the community. So that's the sort of thing we had. But other than that, why our members of our family have worked hard trying to make changes in this community as well as other communities where they were. But it's a long, slow process, and so to that degree, I'm proud of the members of my family, the extended family, for the contributions they have made here and the other places as well. Because the family as a family has been largely instrumental in making changes, not only here in Kokomo, but in Marion and other places where they've settled. And so that's part of the Pettiford family and the Weaver family, and who else do we have in the other family members who are in this extended family. I showed one of my residents here in the center a picture of our 100th reunion, and he was amazed that out of 2 people 150 years ago, we now have about 500 people, members of the family. So it's a big family, and they've been instrumental in many places around the country, really, in making changes that have been necessary in the country. Well, that's the closeness of the family, the fact that the family feels like a family, even though it's 500 people now or so. They still feel family-like. And now whether that goes on into the next generation, apparently it's going on into the next generation. That's what this is all about here, apparently. Now, how long that will go, who knows, but it's at least, what's this, 3rd or 4th generation now from the first Pettiford Weaver couple. So it may continue on for another 100 years. So, one of them was the time when the folklore teachers from IUK, I took them over there. They were interested in the history of the family as folklore people, and they had interviewed many of my uncles and aunts. And then I took them over to the reunion. This was in 1980, and they had put together a family tree and put it up on the wall to fill in spots that they hadn't been able to put in. And everyone got a big bang out of that, because they said, you left out Uncle Bill or Aunt Amy or somebody on this family tree. So everyone had a big bang out of that to fill in what the folklore people had not been able to put in. So that was in 1980. And I think a couple of times I brought people from other countries along with me over there too. I had a Japanese friend that I took over there one time, and of course the family, as a diverse family anyway, just took him right in and said, now where do you fit in on this family tree here? And he got a bang out of that. And then I took a couple of Russian couple over there one time, and they were amazed that there were so many people all in one family, all getting together peacefully and not arguing and screaming and yelling at each other. And I took an Italian couple over there one time too. So I've taken a lot of people that otherwise would not have gotten into that over there at one time or the other. That was interesting.
There's 9 of us, 9 sisters and brothers. And we lived in Marion first. And then I moved to Kokomo in 1960. And then in 1961, my sister came and lived with me. And so that's when we both came to Kokomo. We both were in Kokomo. And we had a great time growing up. We used to do everything.
Yes.
The 9 of us. And so now we all still get together, the 9 of us, every other Friday virtually, so that we can see each other. Mm-hmm. Because we love being together, and we do a family Bible study together.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We do.
And we did one last night.
Yes.
And it's great.
With Herbert, what we did, Herbert and Lillian, I met them when I got pregnant with Tyler, my daughter, and they came, and from that time on, I ran with Lillian. I did a lot with them then. And we had a ball, he was at IUK University there, Kokomo. And he did a lot of things. You know all the things that you did we went to, where we go to dinners, and we went to parties down in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah, well.
But he loved to cook.
Oh,
back
and they
then.
cooked.
Oh, my
let me tell you,
goodness.
we had
How he cooked.
some
Yeah,
good food.
so, and we like
Especially
that.
the couscous. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. That
I haven't had couscous for a long time.
And how Herbert is related to us, he's our cousin because our dad his father was a Pettiford. His mother was a Pettiford.
Yeah, Mark.
She had, Nathan Marshall Pettiford was our great-grandfather.
Yes.
And so he had a daughter named Martha, which she's named after.
Yes.
Her name was Martha Jane, so they named her Martha Jane. Now, I'm named after Grandpa and our dad because they had a son, and he was the youngest, and his name was Marshall. And my mother said she wanted a son. She'd already had one daughter earlier, and she said, I wanted a son. Well, since they didn't have a son, I became Marcia. They took the two L's off. So I was named after my dad, Marshall. But that name is carried on. There's our great-grandfather was Nathan Marshall. Our dad was Marshall. And then we have a brother who lives in Georgia who's coming in today. And his name is Marshall. So, and then the middle name of a lot of our nephews is what they have, because they want to carry on the Marshall through the Pettiford name in the family. So that's what we like. And since Herbert didn't have any children, we're carrying on all of the names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I come over here a lot, though. We come here and have lunch usually about once a week with Herbert. We come about.
Now the problem is that they come to eat the lunch. They don't come to see me.
Oh, no, that's not true. We come to visit with you.
We do.
That's not true. See, he's picking on us now.
Yeah, he is. Because I come over, I like it. I'm about to know a lot
Now,
of it.
Janie, you come to learn who all the people are in
I
the
do.
place.
I do.
She goes and walks around and meets people, and if she sees somebody new, she goes and finds out who they are, don't she?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Uncle Herb doesn't know those people, but she knows the people.
Yeah, and when they come to the table, because Norma and I, we were for lunch one day. Remember that one time we was over and this woman walked over?
Oh, yeah.
And you know what she did? She tapped you on the shoulder. What did she say to you? You look good.
Well,
When she said, you're looking good. We said, wait a minute, who is it? I said, what's your name? I had to find out who she was. Cause
Yeah, that's one thing Janie does all the time is
Yeah.
find out who everybody is.
here.
Who everybody is that lives in Primrose. So so you know how we like a lot of family for reunion. Janie's making all these people at Primrose family. She keeping everybody in the loop.
Yeah.
I taught in the public school system. I went there in 1968, and there wasn't that many minorities at all in the system. And then I decided to run for school board because you needed to make a change. We needed to make a change. And so I retired from the school system because you can't be on the school board and be an active teacher or anything such as that. So I ran in 1998 to become a member of the school board. And when I went on the school board, there was one secretary in the whole school system. Now, there was like 18 schools, and there was one secretary. When minority teachers, there was probably 3. And then for administrators, there were none. We thought that we had one that was out at the administration building, And that person was over social services and the nurses and the liaison officers and whatever. Well, when I got on the school board, when she told me her salary and I heard the other people's salary, I thought, well, she's being discriminated against. So I had to figure out a way for the whole board to listen to what people were doing. And I said, you know, since I was a teacher, I don't know what everyone's position is and what they have to do in their offices. And so they came in and they told me their job descriptions, but they told the whole board. When she listed everything they had on her and what her salary was, they were paying her a teacher's salary. They did not even have her as part of the cabinet, where her office was there, and all of us that were working in the school system assumed she was helping make decisions. She was not, and she was having to do all this work and making a teacher's salary. Her salary went from $50,000 to $88,000. Now that's how bad it was, and she had been out there in the administration working that way for probably 5 years before I even got on school board. They were discriminating and we didn't realize it, and she knew that some of them were making a little more than her. She didn't know they were making that much more than her because you aren't supposed to discuss salary in the workplace. So that was a big change. And then now at every school we have an administrator, we have principals, assistant principals, and we have people who are working in food service and people who are working in as janitorial, because they didn't even hire them. There was a young man that had been my neighbor, and he had been laid off in Marion because they downsized at this one factory. Well, at that time, he was 50. Well, he could hardly get a job, and he had a high school education, but that's all he had. He said, I'll be a custodian or anything. So I went in to the superintendent, and I said, we need to hire him because he's a good person and he needs insurance. Well, they said, we can put him on as part-time. Well, part-time, you still don't get insurance. For 2 years, he stayed as a custodian. Then he came to me one day and he said, do you realize that they just hired a man last week at this one school off the street, and I've been a sub and still don't have insurance, and they have me working every single day. I said, I know that. And they talk about how great you do their rooms and everything. I went right into that superintendent and I told him, I said, I want you to go down to that HR office and you tell them that we are not going to approve that person you just hired for that school. You're going to have to take and tell them that until the board approves them, they're not really hired. And you know what? They had to take, he said, well, they've already told him he's hired. I told him, I said, you get up out of your seat and you go down there and you tell them what I said, because I am going to make sure every board member votes no. Now, I want you to understand, I'm the only black person on the whole board. The only one. But I told him, I was president, and I said, I'm not going to talk to you anymore about it. We've had a person who's been subbing for 2 years. That person needs insurance, and this other person will become a sub, and he will be hired. He got up out of his seat and he went down there. So he told the next superintendent that came, when she comes in your office, she's like E.F. Hutton. When she tells you something, she means it. She won't discuss it. She'll get up and she'll leave. And that's what you have to do sometimes. You don't go to the newspaper, because then the people in this town will start saying that she wants everything for the black person. She wants this, she wants that. But you can do it behind closed doors. But you got to know you're right. When you do it, you got to know you're right. But, I mean, I would do that for anybody. There was white kids who were being mistreated. Their parents called me and there was issues. I would go I would check it out first, and I would take care of it. Because you have to treat everybody the same, because I told all the other board members that when somebody comes to you, and if it's a minority, I want you to take care of it the same way you would for somebody else in your family. And they started doing that. But I just retired 2 years ago, this past January, because I wanted to make sure that a minority took my spot.
Yes.
Because I had a year and a half to go on the school board, but all before it was a white person that represented our district. And they were getting their people together. Well, what I did was I got somebody that people knew and had worked at Delco, and he had experience, and he was a minister, associate minister and everything. And I got him, and I finally talked him in to taking my place. Then I got to help choose who took my spot. And so now he is on the school board. They had an election this past November, and nobody ran against him because they already said Marsha Bowling already picked him last time.
Yeah.
And so he's still on. So he'll be on for at least for another 4 years. But you have to look ahead. And what we did see, you appoint, if you go off early, you appoint somebody. So I retired early just so I could appoint a minority.
I'm a Pettiford as well as a Weaver. My dad's side, my dad's a Pettiford. His father is a Pettiford. His mother is a Stewart. On my mom's side, her dad's a Greer. Her mother is a Weaver. So you've got the families intertwined all through me. But the best part of it really, because we've just been doing this, like we grew up, I couldn't even tell you when is the first reunion I went to because I was probably in diapers. And some of these people, you know, I'd only see them once a year at the reunion because they didn't live in Marion. For us, it was just a quick drive down the street, but they're coming in from multiple states. And it was just so neat to me to see them, like, I'm related to all these people. And every year you get to see them again, more of them getting married, bringing in other people, having babies. Every year, you know, it was bigger and bigger. And so that it just always fascinated me that we had so many people, at least in this country that I knew of, that would come from everywhere and gather together.
I started going probably about 5 years ago, and to walk into the site where it was at in Weaver, and all of these people was overwhelming. There was lots of people, and a lot of them looked just alike. And I was like, wow, how amazing this is. And of course then I saw Cousin Norma, who had invited me to come there, and so she started telling me, this is your cousin here, this is your cousin there, and they had a book out, and it showed, you know, relations to this person and that person, and then you had a name tag that kind of attached you to your family group, and it was just amazing because I had been adopted, and so I had not been privy to all those years previous, and I didn't know all of those people. And to have that sense of belonging, which I longed for as an adopted child, even though it's not to say that my adopted family were not great. They were great. It was a small family. And to go and walk into all of this, wow, I'm just like, wow. And being that I knew of my family slightly when I was adopted, I never forgot my mom, I never forgot my brother or my grandparents, and I think that was my troubles growing up, because I had that memory of them and I wanted to go back and be with them, but that was not going to happen. And my mother, my adopted mother, had some work done in the house. And so I went downstairs and I said, Mommy, this man keeps looking at me. And she said, which man? And I said, the man upstairs working. So he heard me and he said, well, I'm just sorry that I keep looking at her, but she looks just like a niece that we used to have. And so my mother asked where he was from, and he said Marion, and he was actually married to my Aunt Leigh. Uncle Gene, Vargas was his name, and so what a coincidence that she would have some work done and this man would be there. Well, he asked my mom if they could come back, and she let my Aunt Leigh come back, but then after that she wouldn't let me have any connection with them because she was afraid that I would want to leave and go with them because I had struggled for that connection, that family connection, those people that I remembered. And so years went on, and I really lived in anguish and in misery, not being able to connect with my mom or my brother. And my brother happened to know someone in Indianapolis, and just so happened I had walked to school every day with this person's sister. And so that's how my brother and I reconnected. And he brought me back to Marion, and I met my mom and my grandparents. My grandfather, Russell Smith, was deceased at this time, but my grandmother Mabel was still here, and my mom. And to meet them, it was overwhelming. It was joyful. By this time, I had a child of my own, but to watch the dynamics of this family is totally different than what my adopted family was. But I felt like something had been lifted off of me that I had been in search of all of these years, that now I was reconnected with my mom and my sibling and the rest of the family, and so many of them. That was the other thing, was so many aunts and uncles. But then I watched just the behaviors and everything, and it kind of helped me understand who I was then, because I saw some of my mannerisms and some of my behaviors in these individuals, even though I hadn't been around them in a long time.
Oh man, so many things I'm excited about, but I'm most excited about seeing my family and catching up and finding out how they survived during the pandemic. So I'm excited that we'll get to actually see each other and have time with each other. So I'm more excited about the interpersonal contact that we're going to have. Very excited.
I like seeing family members we haven't seen in a long time, because you don't always get to go to every single one. And then I like just the drive and the enjoyment of being together, getting down there. Because for us, it's
Tell the whole truth, though, Lou.
Okay, then I like the food too.
She like to cook. She like to cook.
I like to cook.
She's gonna be cooking. Oh, she's gonna be so happy. She loves to cook. Every time we do. She's gonna be cooking it up.
Just getting with the family.
Yes, and just
interacting. And interacting with the whole family, and seeing some of the family I hadn't seen. And now it's going on 2 years since COVID kept us from seeing each other in person. So it's just the idea that we have something that a lot of families don't have, and sometimes I think we take it for granted, but it really takes motivation and inspiration to get together every year and to make the trip, no matter what.
One of the main things that I remember is seeing a lot of the older generations, and everybody like, hey baby, and you look so big, and seeing a lot of people that I don't know but know me, of course eating, and then the picture that we take every year is something that I really enjoy being a part of.
I guess the fun activities or the little tournaments or whatever for prizes that we usually have.
One of my earlier ones that I attended, I remember going to, there was this little park area, and we was playing on the little merry-go-round. I want to say, I think my auntie was helping us out one time, and was getting that mug going and going. I want to say she fell off, I believe, and I just remember that was something that I remember. But always going to the park and having fun with my other cousins that I really don't know, except for, I'll see them every year at the reunion or whenever we have the reunion. Also, seeing they get the electric slide going, how they get the
No, I was young, but I just remember going there and then
playing on the swings and stuff. Honestly, I feel honored, and ultimately I am my ancestors. So either way, I'm just the vessel for them to continue channeling their legacy.
Yeah, we grew up on a street, on McClure Street, and we were all cousins. Herschel lived next door, which was my dad's brother. So they lived next door to each other, and then Uncle Chester lived catty corner from us. Uncle Raymond lived right across the street. The Hornadays lived right down the street.
And so on. And so we always went to school together. Well, I've always been a small guy. Carlos looked like this when we was kids and stuff, you know.
And so we all grew up together. The Hornadays had like 14 kids, and 12 of them were boys. And so we were all like, growing up, the older ones taught us how to fight, how to be tough, and we had to learn how to fight or you got beat up.
And so I would get picked on. Carlos would never let nothing happen to me.
You were taught not to let anybody mess with your family. So, you know, no matter where we was at, if somebody would mess with him, I would help him out. And if I couldn't whoop him, then I had a cousin, one of the Hornadays, or somebody that could come and whoop him that was older than me. So, you know, it was like if you mess with one of us, you had to mess with all of us. So if you can't whoop all of us, then you better just leave us alone because that's just the way we were raised.
He always was there throughout our entire school till they moved. They built a new house out by the school, and then they moved and stuff. But old Carlos, he worked, always had money in his pocket. I never had nothing. We'd go get donuts, you know, and I was about like the little kid looking in the window at everybody else getting donuts. And back in them days, donuts cost a nickel. Carlos would always get me a donut. They're at Bogle's, they're across from McCullough and things. This boy was driving at 14. We used to get Uncle Lloyd. Remember Uncle Lloyd?
Yeah,
he would be driving, 14, we'd be in the car, you know. I got a whipping over that and stuff, you know. Yeah, Mom, she said, no, you ain't got to, oh, Mama was tough. Mama was tough. But I've always appreciated Carlos because he was just a good friend, a good cousin. We had a lot of laughs and jokes, you know. I mostly appreciate him just looking out for me and stuff, you know. There's only about 6 weeks apart as far as age goes and things, you know, but that really meant a lot. You don't pay attention to that as a kid and stuff, you know. That's just the way you function, you know, and things. But I've always told, when I talked about you, I said, Carlos always looked out for me and things, you know, because if you want to run with the big boys, you've got to take all the punishment and all the ribbing and all that stuff, you know, and I always wanted to be a part of that and stuff, you know. But I just want old cuz to know just what that meant to me, because you don't think about it. You know, you just don't think about it and stuff, but I do over the years and stuff. You know, you'll see something that flashes back and stuff, you know. Every time I see one of them old Chevys, I think back to you driving it, you know, you working as a plumber and stuff, you know. Yeah, boy always had money in his pocket at 14, 15. I couldn't keep a quarter in my pocket, you know. So I just, I appreciate this opportunity just to share that. You know, just one of them little tidbits that you just have and stuff, you know, because it really means, it means a lot and things. And I know that one time I was doing an internship at IU. It was a computer internship. And they didn't keep me for the summer. So I was going to hitchhike out to California and see him. And because he was out in Long Beach. He was in the Navy and stuff. And I was going to hitchhike out there. But I think at that point you'd already been deployed over, shipped on over and stuff, you know. So that's how I ended up in Europe. And I have been a travel bug ever since and stuff. So I owe that to you because I was going to hitch out and see you. But instead, I went the other way because I had this money in my pocket and stuff, you know, and I said, I'm going to have a good time. And like I said, you was already deployed. And so I've been a travel bug, been around the world twice and things. So now that I think about it, I owe that to you too. So,
well, you're welcome. And my father really stressed family. I mean, as Christy said, you know, it was an expectation to make the reunion. There was no argument about it, on the third Sunday of August, that's when you go. So I've tried to entice that into my kids. It's a little harder nowadays, of course, to get them to understand what it's all about. My father used to tell me that it was his grandmother that decided to, you, Carolyn, may know better, but he would tell me his grandmother wanted the kids to all come home, and that's how the thing started on the third Sunday of August. So it was very important to him, and it made it important to me. So I try to make it important to my kids. I don't think I've done as good a job, but they come and they call me and they remember the date. I mean, that date is ingrained in their head because it should be. And we try to make it. I missed some because I was gone. I was away, got sent to Vietnam and some different things. And then I was a state policeman for 34 years. And one of my responsibilities was running the state fair, and the state fair always interfered with the family reunion because it's in the month of August, so I couldn't make it. During those years I was running the state fair, but we try to make it now. My kids make it now. I think I've stressed the importance of family to my kids because I don't know why, but my son named his son Carlos the same as me, so we got a trace now because he named him identical to myself and him, which my grandfather's name was Carlos, so maybe we're going to keep that tradition going in the family, hopefully. If we can have boys. He had 3 girls and 1 boy, so we'll try to do it, but yeah, that's the way we were just raised as family, and the whole neighborhood was family, so it was kind of strange when we moved away from the neighborhood because that's where we was raised, and that's how we was raised, and we all piled around together, and we hung out together, and like Herschel said, my family, immediate family, we still all get together and take trips overseas to Italy and Europe, Rome. We go all over and try to show them that there's a lot to the world besides Marion, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, so that they can grow, because you have to know what's out there in order to grow as a family, but you still keep the family importance. And so that's what I try to teach my grandkids and my kids. So.
We grew up together. Basically, my mom and her mom were teenage mothers. And so our grandmother raised all of us.
Right, all the grandkids.
All the grandkids. Every summer, I lived in LA, but every summer I would come back here to Indiana and run around with my sister cousin. This is really my sister cousin.
Right.
Yeah, not really my cousin.
Right.
And we would just get into trouble, get whippings, spankings. Yes, we get overboard and get beat down. Because we was bad. We were. Running around doing stuff we didn't have any business doing. But our grandmother was
She was
amazing.
our matriarch. She was our matriarch, and she took care of us. She made sure when our parents weren't around that she would take care of us, and she loved us, and she spanked us, and she gave us everything that
grandmothers give.
Right.
It was nothing she wouldn't do for us.
It's true.
And she passed, I always know how long she's been gone because she passed the day before my wedding.
That's right.
I was going in to give her, talk to her and show her my wedding gown. And before I could get out of the church, my mother walked in. I took one look at my mother's face and knew that my grandmother was gone. But I wasn't hearing that. I was
we
like,
was kids.
so
we didn't really.
I was in my 20s, when I got married. So, but she met my husband. She gave me the thumbs up. She was like, you need to marry that boy. So, in 34 years, we're still together. 36 years we've been together. As a couple, 34 years.
This is huge.
Yeah, big.
This is huge.
Big.
This is our heritage and our lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as an adult with children of my own, I'm looking at my children like, this is where you all need to step up. This is the stuff they were trying to hand to us so many years ago, and we didn't get it. And now it's like, we've been getting together for 102 years. This doesn't happen.
No.
This is awesome. It's an honor to carry that legacy. And right now, we call them OGs, the previous.
We the next gen, they the OGs.
Next gen, they stepping down, so they're gonna entrust us to move forward, and we're ready.
Legacy.
We are ready. We have been groomed for this, and we understand, we love it, and we respect the tradition, and we're gonna incorporate some new things. And we did the centennial, and they're okay with us taking them over because we stepped up.
We taking over, but we're not taking over, right? Because my mom is still involved, cousin Herschel's still involved. Like whatever they want to do, we're open to them doing it. But if they're like, hey, y'all run with it, we're gonna do that too. Like we would never just take over because there's so much wisdom there.
So much,
yeah,
right,
you gotta incorporate that. But it's just awesome that they trust us.
Right, they trust us enough to put the legacy in our capable hands.
It's a big responsibility, and it's one that we hope to pass on to our children later on as well. Yeah.
Then they could be the old people at the grill.
Yeah, because we're the old people at the grill now, but they gonna be the old people at the grill.
We're the old people. We have a joke. We have a running joke. At the place we used to be in, there was this big stone grill. It was like bricks. And every time we would go there, we would see these bunch of old people there, and they would have beer, and they'd be having this meat on the grill. We'd be like, God, there's some old people at the grill. And we were kids, we walking past. The last year we were at that site,
I was at the grill.
We were at the grill, and I was like, cuz, we the old people at the grill. So now it's like, we the old people at the grill. That's our running joke.
That's
like,
our joke.
We the old people at the grill. So next gen is the old people at the grill. And we ready. So, I'm sorry. That's it.
We've been going to this reunion since we was little. Our uncle used to pack us in the back of his truck.
Pickup truck.
All of us kids rode in the back of Uncle Charles's truck. Right. Thank God he didn't have no accident. Because we would have all been out of that truck.
And we weren't strapped down like
we was not strapped down.
We was
actually standing up there.
Hey, wait. Hanging on. We was excited.
Excited to ride.
That was just bumping all the way to Indianapolis in the back of a pickup truck, unharnessed, playing "That's My Car." That's my car.
Right. You
That's
see
my
a nice car. Yes.
So,
oh my God.
We got great memories, and I'm excited. Yeah. I'm really excited that we're gonna take over.
We're getting it on our own land now too. It's
right.
It's gonna be real nice.
I remember going to Weaver as a child. Quite often my father would take me out there, and whatever he was doing, I got to sit in the car. I didn't get to do much, but and then family reunions. The reunion, my mother always attended. My dad, not that often, but was there quite often over the years to the reunion. So the reunion was at the Prince Hall grounds, and so they had the swings, and some of that stuff out there now is original. It was there when I was going. That merry-go-round or whatever it is, that was there 70 years ago. So, this is Prince Hall Housing Authority where we're doing it here, and it is owned by Wilson Lodge number 12. At least we're the sponsoring entity, and we have 182 units, low-income housing. Well, the farm out there, the land out there in Weaver, Prince Hall Grand Lodge bought that land in 1923 for an old Masonic home. And so that's where old Masons could go when they got older. And that place, we had a caretaker and whatnot. It cost too much to keep it up. So the vision of Wilson Lodge was to replace that old folk home with a housing project. And so that's what we did in 1972. We built this housing project, and been at it ever since, and I am what they call the managing agent of the project. My dad was the kind of guy that talked about the family, and so I'm family orientated. My kids and sisters and brothers, and I take care of them all now. I'm the eldest living, and so it's my job to take care of family, and that's what I do. And it was born and bred in me by my father. So everything that I do is kind of family orientated. My father was in Masonic Lodge. Needless to say, I had to be there. And so that's how I became connected with the Masonic Lodge. And it is my family now as well. So I have traveled through the ranks there. I'm past Grand Master of Prince Hall Grand Lodge here in Indiana, and I also serve as the manager of the property there in Weaver. Well, we've been on lockdown for a couple of years, and we need to get back to normal, to where we can see folk and talk to folk and do the things that we used to do. I think we're missing out, and our kids are missing out on a lot by not being able to get out there or wherever we meet and go to the reunion.
I'm a graduate of the Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, a very proud HBCU alum, and also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I am the granddaughter of Trulia Minerva Pettiford, and just very proud to be amongst my cousins today, as always. I can remember from the time I was a very small girl, most of my uncles and aunts lived in California, and so during that third Sunday in August, everyone would come home, and I would so look forward to seeing my aunts, uncles, cousins coming in. And my grandmother, of course, it was filled with a lot of food prior to the reunion as well as the day of the reunion. And there was one traditional meal that always sticks in my mind, and I still have it in the in the summer when all the vegetables come in, July, August time frame. My grandmother would fry tomatoes, not just green. We were into the orange, slightly red ones with bacon, thick cut bacon, toast, and fried apples. That was just tradition. But I mean, you always look forward to the reunion because there was so much good food. You knew Aunt so-and-so made those chicken and dumplings. You better go get some because that green pot over there is Aunt so-and-so's chicken and dumplings, or the red velvet cake is under the table, already wrapped up. You better go get some because it's almost gone. There was just certain things that you look forward to. And back then, people cooked, right? And you knew who cooked what. I'm funny acting, I admit it. So I don't really eat a lot of the food now because I just don't know. You don't know the aunts and uncles. They're not here, you know. So it's a little different now, but yet and still, it's always good to see your family and friends, those that do come in from out of town.
Yeah, it's Karen Applewhite. You have to say the whole name. You have to say Karen Applewhite. Every family reunion, this is who I hung out with. Mm-hmm. Karen Applewhite, Joy Lynn, and I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta, by the way. Ooh.
Kiwi.
Okay. we're still Greek sisters and family and love, and I love her to death. This is who I used to hang with. Every family reunion, I look for her, Joy Lynn, my cousin Tamika, Pam and I would always ride up with Pam, Kim, Karen, Robin. We'd all ride up and hang out with this one right here.
Girl, this one right here, you know, there are just certain people you look for every year, and it's like when I get to the reunion, there are people I look for. So where's Candy? Our cousin Robin, when she comes in from LA.
Robin, yeah, Little John, that's another Robin.
Yep. Yeah. Or, well, what's her name? Banks.
Yeah.
Robin Banks. Lorene, Robin Banks. Yeah. But yeah, we look for her too because we're all around the same age. So, you know, we look forward to sharing and making memories as usual.
As normal.
Yeah.
I named my daughter Lorene after Robin.
Oh, I never even knew that. Okay.
Diamond Lorene, her middle name. Yep.
Well, it's a little different for me now because all of my aunts and uncles are deceased. My mother is gone, and so it just has a different feel than it used to have. But it's still family. At the end of the day, it's still family, and like I said, it just feels a little different. But still, you know that you are amongst family members, so you always have that genuine feeling.
Well, I have many memories. Okay, baby. She sound like that voice. See all of our cousins, playing on the merry-go-round, the boys playing basketball. We all dancing and eating good food.
I remember just playing real hard. Like when we got home, we were dirty, but we had fun and we were tired. Getting in the little pond where it was like dirty water, but we swam in it, and getting on the little merry-go-round, going fast. Everybody fell. Everybody fell, and on the seesaw, and just playing and having a good time.
One of the first memories I think of is there's this picture I have in my head standing in my grandparents' front yard in this outfit that my mom made, and I love the picture because I love that outfit. Mom made us outfits to go to the reunion that year, and we always just were waiting for our cousins who lived out of town to get there so that we can, like my sister said, play as hard as we possibly could. And then we usually always had some plan for either me and Kim to go spend the night with them in Peru, or for them to stay and spend the night with us when the reunion was over.
That makes me want to tell a story about when Carlonda.
I think I know what story she's talking about.
She would be so mad if I shared that story, but I'm not. She had to ride home with the brown paper bag on the back of Uncle Morgan's motorcycle.
No, that's how bad we wanted to spend the night with each other. Like, we had to...
She didn't care. She wanted to spend the night. Yes. I'm sorry, Carla.
It's probably only that funny to us. Because
I know, sorry.
Because of how embarrassed she was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's too much.
My memories are the same as my sister's. We would play hard. My favorite memory would be my birthday's August 18th. So my birthday will fall on the family reunion, and I tell everybody it was my birthday, and I go home with a lot of money. But yeah, we would get together at my nanny and grandpa's house before we go, and we would all ride up to Weaver, and we would play hard and have a good time and swim in that nasty water. But it was fun. It was all fun.
I'm looking forward to hugs. I like hugs. And just seeing people, seeing family, and dancing.
That is another memory. Wasn't the 75th family reunion, we had a talent show. And the three of us, plus our cousin Carlonda that Kim was talking about, who rode home on the back of a motorcycle, we performed in Vogue, giving him something he can feel. We were like kids.
And our cousin Quincy.
But we performed that video.
And our cousin Quincy Pettiford, he recorded it, and he recorded the reunion that day. And one thing I remember is Norma on the video telling everybody, get over here, get your head up, introduce yourself. And that's always how I remember Norma. She'll break a family story down at any moment, at any time, and she'll have all the information. So now Christy
is the new Norma.
No, she's baby Norma.
Oh, I'm not.
We ask Christy questions now.
Yeah. I got my book with me. So the book is basically our family tree, but it also has some memories in it from different people, and that's why I brought this book today because my Aunt Joyce, who passed away 2 months ago, she was highly involved in the family reunion. Like, she was super happy to be a part of the family reunion. She served on the committee for a short time, and so I felt like it would be special and feel like to have a part of her here, because she would definitely be here if she could right now to share one of the memories that she shared in the book. But I won't actually take the time to read it right now, but she basically was talking about what we've all been talking about, coming together, seeing family who did not live here. But she also talked about how there were specific families who were responsible for getting the family reunion together and organized before the family got there.
Well, you know, the story that I always heard growing up was that we came from Granville County, North Carolina, headed west. We were free people of color. And the interesting thing about that is I discovered that when I was doing the research on the family at the Mormon Genealogy Library. On the census record, there's these initials, FCP, and it stood for Free Colored People. And around 1838 to 1860, the Pettifords, Weavers, and a number of free African Americans began to move west as the Civil War, or the war between the states, was approaching. The free people of color were being threatened with enslavement. And so our people came in 13 covered wagons out of North Carolina into Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. Settling in Grant County was the Weaver and the Pettiford family. And they also developed a community that had their own grocery stores, their own school, their own church. A lot of what that community was able to do was to sustain itself, and they were able to do that with the help of the Quakers, who were part of that movement from North Carolina along with them. The land that we sit on, or the land where most of my life we've had the family reunion, is the land that now belongs to the Masonic Lodge. They bought that land. Further down is the Weaver Cemetery, and then the actual homeland where they used to have the reunion for Martha and Joseph Pettiford had the reunion was on 22 was on
35, 2235.
2235, and that was the actual farm for Martha and Joseph and their 19 children and the 17 children that lived to adulthood. So the history is steeped in all of the soil of that area. And John Henry Weaver owned a grocery store there, and he also allowed them to open a post office there, which is how it became Weaver Settlement, because the number of Weavers who lived in that area outnumbered all the other family members. So that's why they named it the Weaver Settlement.
I want to share, my name is Cheryl Boyd. I want to share that on June 17th, 2021, the Pettiford Weaver Irrevocable Family Trust will be the proud owners of 1.75 acres of land in Weaver, Indiana. It's been an amazing journey. And so we know that by the time you guys watch this, we will have reclaimed that land. And it will be 2 days before Freedom Day, 2 days before Juneteenth, when we obtain that land. This land, it belonged to our ancestors. It belonged to John and Carrie Pettiford. And we'll talk about it. It was through a lengthy process, but the board, and there's an additional 9 members besides myself on this board, and I have 3 of them with me today. So we have Carolyn Spears, we have Carlos Pettiford, have Toriana McNair, also Herschel Lewis, Keith Durham, Wesley and Chandra Haynes, Carletta Clark, and Veronica McKissick. They all have tirelessly worked on the board to reclaim this land. And I definitely also have to mention cousins Tanya and Lacey Marshall, who were groundbreakers in responding to the court case. And I gotta also mention Cousin Norma, who was shared with Cousin Carolyn. And I give Cousin Carolyn credit for assembling the board, but we are just, we're overjoyed to be able to reclaim this land of our ancestors and for the family.
Well, I heard it through my sister, Joyce, bless her soul. She passed away since then, but she called me and explained to me about this land that used to belong to my grandfather and his father, and that it was a court case going on, and we needed to try and see if we could get this land back, and we needed to hurry up and make an appearance to do this. And you know, I listened to her for a minute, and I think she told me that Carolyn had called her and told her about it. So she immediately called me, and I'm putting the X's and O's together, and I'm thinking, well, you're only talking about, when I come to find out at first it was like a half an acre or something, and I'm thinking, well, is it gonna be worth the effort for a half an acre? I said, it's probably gonna cost you more than what the little piece of land is worth. And but Joyce was very adamant about it, and she was pushing me, so I said, well, you know, she's my big sister, and she protected me when I was a kid. And so I had to listen to her, and so I started inquiring and started talking to Cousin Carolyn, and then the next thing I know, Shiro, we got together and talked, me and her and Toriana, and Shiro kind of said, well, you're the elder, and you got to kind of help push this. And I'm like in the middle of tax season, and you know, I'm really busy, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't really do this right now. But they were so adamant about it that I decided, okay, let's do it, whatever we got to do, let's see what we can do to get this land. And then it turned out to be more land than what I originally had heard at first. And then my niece called me, and I talked to her about it, and Christy, and so there was so much interest, I had no choice but to go ahead and pursue whatever we could do to just see if it would be possible. And Shiro, bless her heart, because she sure worked her tail off. She did all the legwork and got it, but she was good. She got done all the legwork, got all the information, and then we started doing this, what you call that, video, Zoom. Yeah, Zoom. We started Zooming. And Lord have mercy, every Sunday night we was Zooming, and it was like hours. It was like hours. Then we had to figure out how we was going to get the money and how we was going to do this, because, you know, I think they ended up, they wanted so much money, it was like, good Lord, I thought, do they have oil on that land? What's the deal here? Yes. I mean, because as much as the person that sold it for was just tremendous amount of money, and so I thought maybe there was gold or oil or something on that land, or they was going to build a new freeway through there or something, because I'd never heard of farmland going for that much money. Right?
Yeah. And I guess I must have been the first one to be called and told about it by my friend, one of my co-workers, Shirley Jones Lett. And she called me up and she said, Carolyn, what is all this in the paper? The Pettifords are being sued. And I said, well, I don't know nothing about that. I don't get the newspaper, so I don't know. Read me the names. Who's the names of the Pettifords that's being sued? And she named off all of them, and my dad and Uncle Herman's name was the first two names. Then she kept on reading, and Uncle Carlos's name was on there, Uncle, Uncle Freitas, all of the 7 children of John and Carrie were in the paper, being the defendants. And I said, well, who's suing us? They said, Irving Farms. And I said, well, let's see. Send me a copy of the paper. I said, no, I'll have my son go get a paper, because I wanted to have it in front of me. So I called my sister first in Carmel. She said, send everything to me, and Keith and I look over it. Well, that fell through in a couple of weeks. Norma called me from Indianapolis. She said, Carolyn, you got to go to this hearing. It's in Grant County Circuit Court. And I said, well, what day is it? She said, it's the 27th. Was it the 27th, Norma? 29th. Okay. So I didn't know what to do, but I knew Joyce knew an attorney because she had worked as the trustee for many years. I think she was elected 4 times to that office. And I knew in the back of my mind, Joyce knew somebody who could be an attorney for us. So she told me, she said, yes. There was a couple of them that I remember. And so what she did, she called the couple that she knew, and I said, and get back with me, and please find out how much he charges. And so she called me back and told me the name of the attorney that she thought would be the best one. So anyway, I called him and I asked him how much he charged. And he said $200 an hour. I said, I'll hire you for this case. I said, but we gotta be there by the 29th, and this was on the 27th. So we didn't have long. I said, now how are you gonna get in court and represent us? He said, I'll just appear in court. I said, that's good with me, as long as we have a representative there. And so he went on and appeared in court for us. And then Shiro called me, and God bless her soul. I'm so glad she called me, because I didn't have the skills that she has, and it would have been too much for this old brain of mine. I'm 82 years old, going on 83, Lord willing, in August. And I was so thankful to her for doing all the work that she's done to get this accomplished. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. But all I knew is I wanted to keep that land if it belonged to our family. And I couldn't figure out how they got it in the first place. But I knew we had to get together to save the land. And we did. We all got together. We figured out each branch. Shiro figured it out. Each branch would pay $5,000, and we'd have the $30,000 that they were asking for the land. Well, it got kind of shaky for a while, but we got it. We got it. Yeah. My nephew down, I think this Uncle Carlos's family had the most. They put in $16,000, I believe. And then I put in my little $5, and then my nephew put in a $5. And then my other nephew, Wesley, I think they put in something. I don't know how much they put in, but I think they made up the difference. So we got the money, praise the Lord. So this was all in God's plan for us to get our land back. And I'm so thankful that it has come to an end and that we will own the land. And Carlos is still thinking about what we can do on the land next year. He's already got it figured out. So I said, well, we talked to Christy and we'll see, because we already paid for it to be at the Manor Park for this year. So anyway, I'm just thankful for the deal that was gone through, and I'm thankful for all of those ones that were on the committee.
I just want to follow up. I know as we were talking about how we reclaimed the land and that it took funds in order for us to do so. In addition to the funds that we were able to gather within the board, we also had the support of our community. So we had folks that gave individually, we had folks that gave as a group, we had some of our churches give, we created a GoFundMe, and the love came out within and outside of the family. The love came for us to be able to raise those funds, because in addition to the $30,000, we had attorney fees, we had to create a trust and so forth, and so we can do great things when we come together. And this land, the history of this land, to know that Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass spoke from this land. This is our land that we reclaim for our family. That's what we're here celebrating today, and it's still so fresh with us, because we just got the news yesterday of this closing date, so it's so fresh with us. of this joy of getting to this point. And then again, there's so much we're looking forward to in the future as Cousin Carlos, of what we'll do with the land and how this land will continue to add to the legacy that the Pettiford Weavers have.
So I initially became involved with reclaiming the land through cousin Carolyn. She had contacted me and she wanted to know, she said that there was a family vote and she wanted to know what my position was in reclaiming the land. Did I want to, vote to reclaim the land or to not reclaim the land? And of course I immediately said to reclaim the land. She then asked me to get a hold of my sisters and find out what their vote was and let her know. So when I called my sister Sharo and explained to her what was going on and so forth, Sharo immediately got involved and said, yes, I want to reclaim the land and I want to help do so. And so, yeah, then I told her, call Cousin Carolyn, and she already had Cousin Carolyn's number, and they got together and it went from there. Well, in the beginning stages, my sister had gathered a lot of information, and once she got a lot of cases, I'll say documents. Once she got a lot of documents together, she had emailed me some documents, and she says, you're the investigator here, and I need for you to help me. We need to comb through this and see what we have. So I think it was probably about the first week. We worked this like night and day, and we combed through, and we realized at that point that, this was an adverse possession case. At that time, we didn't quite understand adverse possession fully, so we really thought, we're going to fight this, They stole our land, they stole our people's land, and this is not right. So that kind of is what started the ball rolling. From that point on, Sharo kind of took over. I didn't have the time to invest in it, as probably a lot of us didn't, where she probably really didn't either, but she made the time. I mean, she was getting a few hours of sleep a night, as she continued to investigate it. So just when we realized that we had something, it was exhilarating for me. To know the heritage of the Pettiford family, the Pettiford Weaver family. They're a very proud family. And just to know that we have the opportunity, or perhaps the chance, to reclaim some land that at the time that we felt was wrongfully taken, in adverse possession. So just that mere fact of we have a chance of reclaiming some land was just mind-blowing. It was like the boxing gloves came on. It's like we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
In a gracious world, those who have could give to those who have not. And so it was asked for the land to be given. And but in the same token, if it could not be given, then we would purchase. That's how committed we were. And when we made what we felt was a just offer, a just counter, they set a price and we made a counter within close range, and that was declined. And knowing that in that moment that they could walk away because we didn't have, it wasn't secure. It still we would have had to go through court and fight. And knowing in that moment that they could have walked away, I remember convening us via Zoom for that low moment of, this is what's going on, and this is what we're going to, how are we going to address it? And we came together as a team, and we rose to the occasion and said, okay, if this is the amount, we'll come up with that amount. We didn't like it, but we'll do it by any means necessary.
We have not found that gold or that oil yet at that time, because they were asking, that's still a pretty hefty price in my opinion, for farmland.
Yes.
Yeah, 30K for 1.75.
Yes.
1.75 acres is the amount of land.
And the average went for about, what, 16,000?
Yeah.
Some are a little lower than that.
Lower than
Yeah,
that, actually.
yeah.
I think Carletta had looked.
Yeah, she actually looked it up, her and Christy.
Yeah.
That's how we made the counter offer, was based
Right.
on what the land was actually going for.
Yeah, they wanted more than double.
Yeah.
We are never alone. God was always with me.
Amen.
It was him who gave like the insight. I have my degrees, I have my intellect, but I've never studied law. And it was the Lord who helped me to unfold and research and understand documents that there's no explanation of why I understood them. There's no explanation of how I was able to put pieces together to show that everyone didn't sign off on different deeds. Everything was not done properly and in order, to show that they did not meet all of the standards of adverse possession. It was nothing but God. And so I'm just encouraged right now just to remember that no matter what happens to us as we walk through life's journey, that we're just never alone. And I know that it was divine order for us to reclaim this land. That it's not about, it's just not about us. It's not even just about this moment, that this was already part of the plan. But yeah, it was a fight, but it feels good when you're fighting and you got God on your side. You know, as we conclude just talking about the land, you think about, you know, this wonderful opportunity. Please stay in tune. We will be sharing opportunities on how you can be able to come alongside. And so again, just stay in tune. We'll be in touch. There will be opportunity for you to come alongside and to get involved. And so the whole purpose of reclaiming the land, one of the heart purposes, I remember Cousin Carlos shared clearly from the beginning, one is that we wanted to be able to have the reunions, to be able to return back to the land, for us to be able to return back to our land. And so again, please stay tuned. When you hear about this land and when you think about this land, just please don't just think about it as, you know, the Pettiford Weaver Board's land or it's their land, and because it's not. It's our land.
Don't even know Martian odds related to
Yes. Slate, I know.
Okay,
Pettiford,
don't mess with
Weaver,
her. People say, don't mess with her.
Pettiford, Weaver, Kokomo, MOS, C6, take one.
That woman.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. That's what the school board man, he told me when I went to one of the things, and I said, oh, Marcia, you know, he says, yeah, don't mess with her. I said, hey, she's my sister, I know. He said, oh, no, you don't mess with her.
Well, that's what you have to do.
I said, okay. Oh, but you have to be right.
Yeah.
I like that.
So go ahead and give me that. We were not having it, and you can do that with. Can you do that with your left hand? Like kind of like nope. And don't point. Just say it how you would normally talk. Just use the left hand. Like we were not having it. It was not.
Put your hand up.
Oh, okay. Then we were not having it. That you weren't hiring someone that had been a substitute for 2 years and couldn't have insurance, and you took someone off the street and want to hire them. And I told everybody on the school board, oh no, we're not going to do that. So I told the superintendent, you have to get up out of your chair and go down there and tell the HR person that that person is not hired until they're board approved. And that's always the fact. They are not hired until they're board approved.
That's right.
Now, they can make recommendations, and most of the time the board takes the recommendations because we trust what they have on that paper about what the person has done.
Tell me about the not hired again. Absolutely not. Shake your head. Absolutely not. Don't turn towards me.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're not having it. You're going to have to get up out of your chair and go down to the HR and tell them we are not having it.
And then you got to put somebody in place with a very expressive. You got to turn. Don't turn towards me. Nope. Very expressive, like you are. Just about. I want to see the hand motions of putting somebody in place.
Put me in place, Marcia.
We have to put our people in place.
But what you have to do is you have to put the person in place that had been there for 2 years. And the teachers all said, what a great job he's been doing. Every day, he was there every day as a sub.
Right.
But then you go and hire someone off the street. And we can't have that. You've got to hire the person that we have been having here for 2 years. Now that person was a minority, but I wanted that person hired. But just like we didn't have hardly any minority teachers when I went on. We didn't have administrators. It was hard. But now I wish you could go to our corporation right now and see how many minorities are in the school system, how many principals we have, and how many assistant principals. Even now we have black coaches.
Yes.
Yeah, and we
Awesome.
didn't have that before.
No, that's good. We'll cut that.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
It was.
Now I want you guys to I want you to talk about how y'all ran Thick as Thieves. Miss Jeannie.
Oh, Herbie, you know we ran together. Remember when we went to
Touch his arm.
remember when we went to
A little higher on his shoulder. Touch his shoulder.
yeah, I remember when we went to Ohio. Now look my way, look at me.
Talk about the woman calling him handsome.
Yeah, and the woman that said you were so handsome here, and I said, what's your name? And she said, my name is Trudy. And I said, okay, we'll talk. So I've seen her since then. But when we went to Ohio, when we went to the dance, remember when we went to the Brazilian there, what was it in Indianapolis? That was up on a floor. We went to that dance. What was that
Well,
called?
it was Brazilian.
Was that the Brazilian
festival,
dance
yeah.
that we went to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we went to. We went to that Brazilian dance. And we also went to some restaurant.
Before you talk, I just want you to smile.
Okay, all right. Okay. I gotta smile when I talk. Okay, you remember that?
Oh yeah, well.
Okay, I do remember that one too.
Andrea, can you move that light
Okay, so
over to your left?
I'm trying to think of when we went somewhere else. But I
Keep
remember when
going.
we came out to the house.
Keep going.
And we had
To your left. Yep, keep going. Good, thank you.
What was that Russian beet soup? It was a beet
I can see you.
Borscht.
To your left.
Borscht. Okay, that's what it
Keep
was.
going.
Then. I didn't know what that was. Then I said I was trying to figure
Move it back.
of what that was. But I knew we had the couscous
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
on that thing. Okay. So other than that, we just ran around together. But Leigh and I ran everywhere together, especially in Indianapolis. Okay?
Can y'all laugh?
Yeah.
Can you laugh and smile at
Now
him?
look this way. You gotta smile. You gotta smile.
Seattle. Jenny and then went to Seattle.
When you laugh, keep don't lean in.
Okay.
Ready? Okay,
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. You ready? You gotta smile at me. You gotta look my way.
Well, she's got the back of my head.
That's okay. But she's getting you too. She's getting you in there too.
So give me a
So you gotta put your hand up for me. You gotta do that for me now.
You
Every
do
now and
it.
then you have to put your hand up for me. You gotta do this thing. You gotta give me a hand. Yeah, every now and then we gotta we're doing our thing. That's what we
Yeah, you got to
okay. Yeah. So that's about it. That we
cut.